So the first question, if Claude Butner can put his video and oral on, go ahead. And Samrat is on deck.
Okay, sorry about that on the background. I'm going to alter my written question because I think you covered it quite a bit in your conversation about unknown uses by nefarious players. And I'm going to ask a simple question, maybe simplistic question. Overall, what is your assessment that AI will have an effect on the total emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, that seem to be continuing to rise year after year? So do you think AI on the whole will be beneficial to those emissions, or will it just add to the emissions?
Well, that's a good question. I can't answer it with any detail because, of course, I don't think anyone knows the answer to your question. Certainly the training of these systems, and that this is just, of course, in the natural language processing domain we're speaking of which there's many areas of AI, they consume an enormous amount of electrical power because of the computing resources required. But I mean, it's far less than Bitcoins, or at least, cryptocurrencies. I mean, cryptocurrencies are consuming roughly, estimated up between 1.5% to 2% of global electricity. AI is nowhere near that. So, and certainly the use of AI, I mean, once it's in your laptops and your smartphones, it's going to consume probably not much more than what we already are experiencing. And using AI actually to manage the electrical grid and to assist in distribution of electricity and all the things that go with the operation of the power plants, whether they're a gas plant or a nuclear powered plant or a small modular reactor, I think there'll be a lot of benefits there that will actually cut down on greenhouse gas, because it will create more efficient processes, which will.
A quick follow-up, can you expand that into management of the overshoot correction or overshoot unraveling that many of our speakers warn us about and tell us about?
Well, perhaps I maybe need to have you explain a little bit more, Claude, about what you mean by overshoot here.
The ecological overshoot, in other words,
gas is over.
Well, the doubling of resource extraction, energy use, population over a period of a few decades, it can't go on continuously. Sooner or later, we're going to hit the peak. And some people would say that the thing to watch for is, as a matter of fact, the MIT study in 1972 suggested that the per capita food production is one of the leading indicators. And I think that with all of the heat around the world, I think it's pretty plausible that the per capita food production is already going to be on the downslide. So will AI help the management as there isn't enough resources for the people on the planet?
Well, as you may recall, I gave a talk to CACOR back in February, I think it was, on planetary limits, planetary boundaries. This is sort of what you're talking about, the reaching.
Yes, I'm inviting you to say what you know. You know a lot about AI, and thank you so much. I think that this has been a great presentation. A lot of things in the slides for further research, which I will do when it's up on YouTube. But I want you to marry these two together.
Yeah.
And you can't put AI in a silo without thinking about, but remember, this is going on the planet. How will AI affect it? Will it help us manage, which apparently we're not managing very well. There's no plans to manage the downhill slide. And I'm inviting you to help us understand if AI, how it can be applied to do that.
Well, as I was just saying in answering earlier, in the sense of AI, I do believe will help in managing energy, so that efficiencies of the way we generate energy currently. And I think that it will help in the same way as in terms of insight into biodiversity issues, insights into toxic substances, novel entities, as I used that term, a variety of these areas. So I think it will have a net benefit as a tool to help understand the complexities. Because these boundaries that we speak of, and you've hinted at several, as I have, these are all interdependent on each other. Climate change is certainly one of the principal drivers of a number of them, but it's human activity that also is, such as deforestation, the production of fertilizers that have now got into the water systems. I mean, these are things that I think AI will help us better understand how to deal with. And it's still going to depend on humans making the policy decisions and putting the resources, such as financial and the right kind of people behind these things, like engineering capabilities, to resolve some of these problems. So I think it's still very speculative, but I do believe that it's a net positive in applying AI to those kinds of problems.
Thank you very much.
Next question, Samrat Bharadwaj. And
yeah,
Richard
thank you so much.
On deck.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is that since you spoke so much about the negative side of AI as well, if you're aware of something called surplus behavioral data, which is then connected to surveillance capitalism, which is how most large internet companies make money, So what do you have to say about that if you have looked into that aspect?
Well, one of the ways, thank you for that, Samrat, and hi again. I would, let me give an example and see if that's what you're getting at. For example, ChatGPT, the ability to code and index the information that gets put into the training set is actually basically a manual thing that humans do. And so there are now, in effect, sweatshops, many in the Far East, with thousands of people employed who get pittance in terms of compensation, who are encoding these data. And so is this the kind of question you're asking? Is AI helping to drive that kind of negative thing?
No, not really. But yeah, that's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, because in the third world, people make T-shirts in sweatshops. So now they must be doing the same job for AI. My question is more that AI has a part which is spying on us all the time. It's spying on us via gadgets, via things which are supposed to make our house smarter. The biggest social media companies, they are spying on us. So that is referred as surplus behavioral data, which then feeds us back what we may like or what we may not like, which then accrues them profit as surveillance capitalism, is what I meant.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, many people have their Siri or their Alexa or so on. These tools that you talk to. These are AI driven. They're natural language, and they recognize human speech, and they work in multiple languages. And basically, most people see that as positive because they want to know what the temperature is outside before they even see what look out the window.
Yes, but there's a big cost to it, I mean, obviously we get to know what the temperature is. Let's talk about it later. I'm sure there are other people waiting as well.
I think we have to move on quick.
Yes.
So Richard, and
Richard.
The next question I have on is from Art Hunter.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Thank you. Good talk, Peter. I enjoyed it. And I have a couple of questions actually in the comment. One is, I read a story on the weekend that actually an author went on the internet and she found that a book had been written in her name, was selling on Amazon. And actually what had been done is that a chatbot had been figuring out her style of writing, published a book with her name on it as the author, and was selling it on Amazon. Amazon was made aware, and they refused to take the book off. So how do you regulate that? That is my first question. The second is a comment. I just wanted to let you know that now the technology has advanced, that AI has advanced to the point where it's actually better at detecting tumors on certain types of X-rays than our radiologists. And the second question actually is, if an automatically driven car or self-driving car actually has an accident, who is now reliable? Who is now liable for paying the damages? So the first question was the book. The second question is the issue of a self-driving car getting into an accident.
Yes, well, I guess in some respects the first two are interrelated in that the book and the pathology, in that AI has been used to create something that is, let's call it, useful. The book is perhaps a good story, but the fact that it's owned the intellectual property, the style is a person. This is a legal issue that could arise by somebody just simply, not even using AI to do that. So it's very much a court situation, but it is, like I said, we're starting to see these cracks in the fabric of society, like the case of the lawyer presenting what he believed was a real use case in a court, and it turned out it was fabricated. I mean, another example, in fact, and some of you may be aware of this, when Google made an announcement a few months ago about embedding this large language model into their search engine, they demonstrated it with it basically looking into creating and comparing some financial statements. Well, it turns out that it fabricated the financial statements. They weren't real. They were not. It was trying to say that, company X, company Y, named companies, and here are the financial statements, interpret these and give some result. Well, it was all fabricated by the tool. And the net result is the company lost 7% of its value in 24 hours. So that was hundreds of millions of dollars, just simply in stock value. I mean, it's obviously recovered, but you may recall Google was in what was called code red, probably still is in code red, which is a term that the executive management were using because they saw such a threat coming from the embedding of ChatGPT in Microsoft's search engine. And so I think that we have these problems at the legal end. Your pathology one is interesting. I can remember about over 10 years ago, again, related to AI, but I was interviewing the head of pathology at Oxford University. And he told me, after many years of being a pathologist, that here I am teaching young, bright people this practice in medicine that is actually going to be more or less doomed by AI. Right. By pattern recognition in AI, just as you cited in your tumor example. Yeah, right. So yes, that's coming, but it's not going to eliminate the human in the context of the specialist, but it's certainly going to perhaps not require as many, or maybe it will still need them in the sense that this may be a tool that'll help more pathologists into the world, because there's always a shortage of specialists in the medical field around the world.
Next is Art.
Okay.
Hunter. And John Lake's on deck.
We'll talk later.
Okay. I've got a couple of comments. Well, one thing that I know from very early days in AI, it's always been, at least that I've understood it, that we should be treating AI as a colleague, something that you talk to, but by all means, do you trust everything that everybody you talk to says? Is that perfect? No, you want to maybe trust them, but verify in any event. So that's just one comment. The other comment is that the governments have not really been involved in this latest push forward, getting up to ChatGPT, and like governments have been involved in the past, particularly in nuclear technology, in the space business, in biology, in plastics, materials. Yeah, all these things, governments have had government labs that were participating in, but when it comes to this latest push, it has been almost exclusively the private sector. And therefore, the world of governance becomes a little more difficult because there are not those technical expertise, those people with the technical expertise within the government. Therefore, this is making it a little more difficult. Now, my question really is with regards to autonomous vehicles. As you know, Musk is pushing full speed ahead to try and get Tesla as being the first autonomous vehicle, but in fact, he's behind some of the others that are doing very well in that realm, in that space. And I say, well, with these types of pushes that are happening at quite an interesting speed using AI, that are you surprised at all that the military is not involved in that at all? Of course they are. They've been involved in AI for as long as I can remember. And even 30, 40 years ago, they had autonomous weapons that would make the decisions when to engage. For example, I'll give you a typical example. If you're on board a ship and you're being attacked by a swarm of torpedoes, a swarm of drones, as well as missiles, you don't have time to have a human involved in every decision as to which defensive weapons you're going to use just to survive. And there is, of course, a switch that you just put it in autonomous mode, and it effectively picks the most threatening target and is directed at taking that out without human involvement. That's been going on for some time. This is not new, and I dare say it'd be really very difficult to try and tell the military that they're going to have to get rid of those. That's not going to happen. They're often and doing many other things which are using autonomous weapons. In your presentation then, Peter, when you in fact say what is, and by the way, I agree with you, you still need some ethics involved. But that does not mean wholesale elimination of autonomous weapons, or do you agree with that?
Well, actually, the autonomous weapons issue is I think, a very sharp-edged sword. Pardon the pun, but the speed of war nowadays, in terms of the speed of flight, hypersonic flight, something you know a lot about. But the speed of things is so fast that a human in the loop could be, in fact, a delay. So, there's a debate as to whether it should be autonomous completely or how should it be graded. I mean, I think that probably some militaries have been giving some serious thought to that. And I know that, the Chinese, American, and Russian militaries are already proceeding with a variety of things in the autonomous weapons space and other uses of AI and intelligence gathering, intelligence analysis, and so forth. I personally have no problems on the intelligence side of it. I am still concerned about the use of autonomous weapons, certainly in a mass sense, of like swarming drones and things of that sort. There may be cases for the need for assassination, as we've had seen, for example, not using AI specifically, but taking out certain individuals in Iran recently by various governments. So it's a space I don't specialize in having anything other than a personal opinion on. So I think I can leave it at that for you at this point. We can maybe have some discussion on this in one of the value committee's meetings. Bill?
Peter Mackinnon said that Richard Van der Jag said that the question about self-driving car with an accident, who is charged, he didn't have a chance to answer that. So, John, if you could just hold on for a sec.
Sure.
Yes. Well, I don't know who the liability would be with, to be honest. I don't know whether it's with the manufacturer of the car, the manufacturer of the software that the car is running on, the manufacturer of the battery, because maybe the battery failed. I mean, there's so many dimensions to it that legal folks are probably poking at the edges of this right now.
Okay, thanks to Peter. Over to Jean for the final thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And Peter, thank you very much for giving such an interesting talk. It is most unfortunate that there were so many disruptions with it, but I'm very, very appreciative for the work that you've done and what you've put into it. And I look forward to seeing this as it's been reformatted so that it runs a little more smoothly. And I'd like to say that this is such a rapidly changing situation that perhaps in a few months, it might be a good idea that we get you back to do another presentation on AI that might go a little more smoothly. But I think that that is really, really good. And your suggestion that this could be a discussion on the values group, I think is also a really, really good thing. With that, I'd like to say for those of you who have borne with this particular presentation, please, to see this presentation, it's in its entirety once it gets up onto the internet. Please go to canadiancore.com and sign into the Stay Informed section where you will see this particular video with all of the slides up on our website, and you can look at it at any time. I also would encourage you to use our website to look for some of the other videos that we have on our website as well. If you're interested in finding out more about CACOR, you can find that on the website, and also the opportunity to sign up and join our particular group. That would be great, and we would love to see you. So with that, Peter, thank you very much for a really interesting presentation, and look forward to seeing and talking to you about some of this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to the next time if we can do that. And I apologize again for the disruption. It even threw me off a lot.